Hey, are you just getting started in music production or mixing and you like to understand how compressors work so you can make professional sounding music? Well, you've come to the right place. You probably keep hearing about them all the time, like, what are these compressors? What's the point? And since audio compression is such an enormous subject, I figured it's better to break it down into a video series, kind of a mini course, instead of trying to tackle everything in one super long video. I don't want to tire you out. So this is Audio Compression for Beginners episode 1. And today I'm going to show you what compression is and why it's so crucial for making music, especially pop music. Hey, how's it going? I'm Thales, pop music producer, and I use compressors all the time. Once you understand what they're used for, I'm sure you will too. There are many ways to use compressors for different purposes, and they have a cool background story, but we're going to keep it simple and objective as always. Before I explain, listen to this example. This is a guitar track before compression. And this is the same guitar track after some compression. Could you hear the difference? Did you notice what's going on with the dynamics? Compressors are devices, hardware or software, that even out the volume level of any audio. They reduce the dynamics of an audio source. It's like when you're watching a movie and you have to turn the volume up during the talking scenes and then lower it during the action so the explosions don't freak your dog out. That means we're going to take an audio that has a lot of volume variation, like it goes from loud to quiet to loud again, and we're going to squeeze it to reduce the difference between the loudest signal and the quietest signal. So that loudness is going to stay more consistent throughout the whole audio. That's the main purpose of a compressor. And that's critical in mixing because if an instrument or vocal track has too much variation in volume between phrases or even words, it can sometimes disappear in the mix. The impression we get when we hear vocals that are not properly compressed on a pop song, for example, is that the vocals sometimes get buried in the back of the mix. It's like they're in the background, they're quieter than everything else, you can barely hear them and understand the words. Then all of a sudden the singer starts singing with more intensity, and now you feel like the vocals are too loud and in your face, and they keep going back and forth between too quiet and too loud, and that gets distracting and kills the clarity. With a compressor, we can make the loud parts of the vocal track sound quieter, and that allows us to bring the volume of the entire vocal track up so that the quiet parts can be heard too. That brings out more details and everything becomes more balanced. That's why most pop music uses heavy compression. The levels balanced between vocals, guitars, synthesizers, drums, and bass stay consistent. And that's done on an individual track level. For instance, you can compress the vocals individually, you can compress the bass individually, the guitars individually, and so on. Then you can compress groups of instruments or even the whole mix to glue them together so nothing stands out beyond the levels you intended and the whole song stays on a certain dynamic range or loudness range. Now, if you listen to classical music, you'll notice that oftentimes there are huge variations in loudness. The whole orchestra will get super quiet at some point and then bam! Now it's very loud, and composers use that to create a cool effect. So classical music has a lot more dynamics than pop. That doesn't mean compression is a bad thing, it just creates a different sound. And that's a matter of taste. Even classical music producers or audio engineers use compressors sometimes, but not to the same degree as pop music. If pop music had the same dynamics as classical music, you would be listening to a song in the radio in your car, then suddenly you wouldn't hear the song anymore because the traffic noise would mask it in the quiet sections. Then you probably wouldn't remember the chorus or even like the song, and it wouldn't be as commercially viable as it would be if they had used more compression. I'm actually using a compressor on this video to make sure you can hear my voice even when I speak softly. Every compressor is built differently, but a very basic compressor only needs 2 controls. That's actually all you need for now to understand how it works, even though they usually have a lot more controls. A basic compressor needs a threshold control and a ratio control. Whenever the compressor detects audio peaks that go over a certain level that you choose, the threshold, it will squeeze the signal that goes over that threshold by an amount also chosen by you through the ratio control. So threshold, how loud the signal has to be in order to trigger the compressor, or the level at which compression starts happening, which means compression doesn't happen unless the audio level goes above the threshold you chose. And the ratio control tells the compressor how much to reduce the audio that goes above the threshold. For example, if your ratio is 2:1, half of the signal above the threshold will be taken away. Now, with compressors, a little goes a long way. Sometimes if we use too much compression, we can squeeze the life out of the signal. That's called overcompression, which makes your song sound loud but lifeless. I'll show you an example. I'll play one of my songs which is already compressed so you can hear what it sounds like. Then I'll insert another compressor with extreme settings to overcompress it and show you the difference. This is what it sounds like normally.
The things I said came from my pain, for reasons too deep to understand. The more you love, the more you hurt.
This is the same track but overcompressed.
The things I said came from my pain, for reasons too deep to understand. The more you love, the more you hurt.
Did you notice how flat it sounds now? That's what happens when you go too far with your compression. In the next episodes, we'll go deeper on the compressor controls and how you can use them in your songs. Also, we'll talk about techniques like parallel compression, multi-band compression, sidechaining, and every single creative technique I've learned on this subject over the years so you can make songs with excellent dynamics using this great tool. Sound good? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Thales and we'll talk soon.